Hello, I'm Dr. Laura Markham, and today I want to talk to you about something that's hard for most parents to hear about: pornography. It's upsetting to hear, but if your child has online access, they will eventually see pornography. Statistically speaking, most children stumble across porn by the time they're 11 years old, many of them by the time they're 8. So before that time, obviously, you need to be serious about adequate parental controls on all your devices. But you also need to educate your child about porn. When you don't bring porn up, that leaves them vulnerable to the damage that it will do when they stumble across it. Whereas if you bring it up, you can do some damage control because you can assume they're going to see it sooner or later. And here's what I mean by damage control. Porn today is very different than it was even 20 years ago. It's a real moneymaker. It's the biggest moneymaker online, and that's saying something. And the free porn that's available to children without a credit card is so violent that it's actually traumatizing to kids who have no other positive experience with sex. Research shows that the younger a child is when they first engage with pornography, the more likely they are to exhibit symptoms of anxiety and depression, both in the teen years and as adults. So it lasts for a long time. They're also more likely to engage in risky sexual behaviors and to experience impairment to healthy sexuality. Sometimes that takes the form of erectile dysfunction or the inability to achieve orgasm for women. Finally, as is the case for all exposure to violence, they show less capacity for empathy, and that's a risk factor for healthy relationships. So I know it's not something that you want to even think about, your child being exposed to porn, but it is something that you need to talk with them about by the time they're 8 years old, just so that when they do eventually see porn, they have a little layer of protection. And what kinds of things might you say to your child? Well, you're going to say, honey, just like some adults drink alcohol, but it's not good for kids, some adults like to look at pictures or videos of naked people, and that isn't good for kids. It changes your brain. It changes the way you feel about relationships. So that's called pornography, and it's not okay for you to look at it. And if anybody ever suggests that you look at it with them, you say, no, I can't do that. That's the rule. I'm going home now. You need to tell your child that they need to tell you if they do see naked pictures online or videos online of people having sex, for instance, so that you can help them understand what they've seen. And also so you can help keep them safe in the future. Explain that you will not be angry at them if they somehow see inappropriate photos or videos. Their job is to just leave the photos on the screen the way they are and to immediately come and find you and tell you about it. You have to understand that pornography is a multi-billion-dollar industry. And the purpose of pornography is not about sex. It has nothing to do with sex. It's about making money. So the product is pornography, and it's designed to be highly addictive because a highly addictive product means that people will keep coming back to it. So even the free sites carry ads that they're harvesting data from users. They harvest the data of their users to sell because they have to support their free site, right? It's actually very lucrative to have a free site. They can sell Viagra ads or whatever. So the porn industry aggressively targets with free sites people who then might move on to paid merchandise as well. But even keeping you coming back to the free site is a big moneymaker for the porn producer. The porn industry aggressively uses search engine optimization to find new users. And I mean, they have the money to do it, right? To invest, that's their business model. And they aggressively use social media to find new viewers. And they specifically target teenage boys. They know that the brain is rewiring rapidly at puberty and during the teen years. And that means that any repeated experience will shape the brain. It'll have more impact because the brain will take shape around that repeated experience. So young people who engage with porn will always be more vulnerable to porn addiction, right? The whole point is it's an addiction. It's cultivated as an addiction because it makes more money for the producers. And anyone they can induce to have an addiction to porn is more of a financial asset to them. So yes, your 14-year-old is fair game to them. it's important to explain all that to your kid. And if your kid, but you don't have to explain it in great detail to your 8-year-old, but by the time your kid is 13 or 14, they'll find that a really interesting idea that a company is trying to warp their brain to make money on them. There's in fact research about food that when you tell kids to eat healthier, they don't necessarily eat healthier. But when you explain to a 14-year-old that that company is making money off of them, knowing that they'll be addicted to the sugar and the fat and the salt content of that food, kids are like, oh, well, I don't want to be manipulated by that company's ads, and kids will eat less junk food. So the same thing is actually, we don't know, we haven't done the research because we aren't showing kids pornography, but it's probably true also of porn that teenagers don't want to be exploited. It just never occurred to them that pornography is not really about sex. It's about them as the product being sold to advertisers. We also need to teach our kids of all ages that porn is not real. It's a fiction. Those are actors, just like the actors on every TV show or every movie they've ever seen. Those actors are being paid to present something that is meant to look enticing, just like other kinds of acting. And often their bodies are artificially augmented. Those are not real bodies. The size of the body parts is changed in the editing process. Real bodies don't look like that. Real penises don't look like that. Real breasts are not that big. People's bodies are actually changed so that they can entice the viewer and make the sex act look in a certain way and make it look like they're enjoying certain things. But it is fiction. And that leads us into learning about sex. Now, hopefully you had conversations with your child about sex starting when they were 3 years old, not, suddenly when you find them at 14 looking at porn for the first time, right? Meaning you didn't talk to them for the first time at that point about sex. Hopefully you've been talking to them about sex right along. And if you aren't, please check out the article on talking with kids about sex on the ahaparenting.com website, AHA parenting.com website, and talk to your child, whatever age they are, and it's got an age by age guide. Talk to them about sex and sexuality so that they can learn about sex from you rather than from pornography. Most kids today learn about sex from porn, and porn is a terrible way to learn about sex because porn is not realistic. Research shows that, these negative beliefs that, when boys engage with porn, they have negative beliefs about girls and sex, like they think girls like to be choked during sex. They're much more likely to believe that because why would it ever occur to them otherwise? They are more likely to believe it if they have seen pornography. They're more likely to believe that girls like to be tied up when they have sex. Girls also go to porn sites. And you know what they say about why they do it? Now, girls have sexual feelings too, obviously, but girls usually describe porn as the best way to learn to be sexy and learn what's appealing to boys. But both girls and boys very often report that they're upset by what they see on porn sites. And that's because porn is almost always dehumanizing, at least the porn that kids are seeing. There is some very high level porn that you pay a lot of money for, that the actors are paid well, that the storyline might be written well. That's a whole different kind of experience for adult entertainment. That's not what children are seeing. Children are seeing dehumanizing porn that depicts sex without warmth, without intimacy, without love. And in fact, usually it includes verbal and or physical aggression toward women. So those photos and videos can really traumatize kids. And in fact, researchers describe porn exposure as child abuse because the negative effects on children, preteens, teens, it's so dramatic. You don't have to only be 8. Even for a 16-year-old, it can be quite upsetting to see the degradation and physical aggression that is often present in pornography. It's interesting that if you're watching this from another country, you might be taken aback by this discussion because in the UK and in Germany, they've passed legislation that prohibits visitors to porn sites until their age is over 18, and they verify it. It has to be verified with a third-party digital clip. And that legislation has actually been very effective. It's prevented hundreds of thousands of kids from being exposed to violent pornography. And in the United States, if you live in the United States, why not ask your legislator to introduce or sign that kind of legislation in the United States or wherever else in the world you live? So that's how you talk with your child about porn. Now, the next question is, what do you do if you walk in and find your child looking at porn? And that's another video for another day.